Sweet surrender as I love, serve, and remember.
Does the divine feminine, or the divine mother, divine feminine, does she play an important role on your spiritual journey? It's the interesting question to ask ourselves. Is it like a concept that you sort of, yeah, I agree with Mother, Father, God, I agree with that, but is that actually an important ingredient? We heard in our poem today, which I loved, was this energy of the Divine Mother as everything. Not just this or that, but everything. And that's really important to hear those words. You know, in Buddhism, they don't have a God, but they call it the ground of being. That's their basis essence. Everything arises from the ground of being. And there's a very sense of either neutral or masculine tone to that. Masculine spirituality tends to be very even keel. That's a big part of masculine spirituality, is just to really not get thrown high or low, but even keel. So ground of being has that even keel sensibility. So to read the Divine Mother as like the great womb of everything in this universe, as that divine source from which everything arises, it's just another shift. It's not either or, but it's a shift that has power to it. We read in the Gita when Krishna is revealing to Arjuna the entire, what God actually looks like. Say, okay, I've been telling you about it, now I'm going to give you the experience. And so it's through Krishna that Arjuna experiences the vastness of the universe. But again, it's through this male entity. So we have so many stories of the divine being shown through this masculine energy. And again, this is not about anti-masculine, it's just to become more conscious of the feminine. What happens when we continually describe the source of all creation, the infinite power where there is no beginning and no ending, in either a masculine form or even a gender-neutral form? Does it matter? So we have in Science of Mind, for those of you who have been in religious science for a long time, our beautiful symbol all the way over there, with the first cause and then secondary causation, the law, and form. Now, Ernest Holmes definitely put the mother, to say that the first cause, there is the mother energy, father, mother. But he spent a lot of time to really emphasize that the divine feminine principle was the law. And that's what I learned. And this is not anything against Ernest Holmes, because everybody wrote about the masculine as God, and certainly in Hinduism, Shakti, which is a divine feminine, is like our law, and that's feminine. And if you even look at our Me Too movement, that was just like 5 years ago. I mean, we had a feminist movement in the 1970s, we had a woman, but to expect people in the turn of the century at 1900s to suddenly become feminists is not a reasonable expectation. So this is not against anybody. There was a whole culture. But we want to bring understanding, we want to bring up-to-date understanding. So one of my passions, because I had an experience, I never was that interested in myself until I had an experience of the Divine Mother. I'm like, oh, this is a very real energy and entity, wanting to be known and seen. And so when I went through practitioner training, one of my practitioner projects was to invite women to look at, when we say the law is a feminine principle, see, I think it's both and, masculine and feminine, but when we only say it's feminine, and so I invited them to go through the Science of Mind textbook and write down all the adjectives used to describe the feminine principle, which is the law. Neutral, passive, always says yes, no volition, plastic, neutral. I had a whole list. They were not really that exciting as a woman to read that and to keep hearing that this is what the feminine principle was. No, that's not the feminine principle. That is an aspect of the feminine principle, and I think the law is also masculine. I think masculine and feminine are together as one throughout all form, from first cause to form. So let's look at so when we say mother God, and I think the reason why it wasn't developed at the first cause is because I think there's a lack of clarity of what is the divine mother at first cause. Who is she? One of the things that we know is words make a difference. We are a teaching about the power of language and words. And so what I saw happening, because this, again, was a passion, so my friend gave me the gender neutral science of mind textbook. And I also loved Goldsmith, who also, and they did the same thing, as they turned all the he's into it's. And I thought, well, that's great, but it still has a male feeling to me. Neutral, you don't have this or that, you're just always, So it's like the default mode. I've been reading about masculine my whole life. Every religious, spiritual book that I was reading had masculine pronouns, and then when I went to it really didn't shift that much. It didn't give, it sort of, as I continued to fight, it's still skipping over the female part. Like, okay, that's great, I like gender neutral, I like masculine, but what do we mean by the divine feminine? And I think one reason why we have a hard time describing it is because we haven't developed it for thousands of years in the way that it's been developed conceptually for the masculine. But there's also the other challenge, which is what the divine feminine is. I was listening to a podcast just 2 days ago, the most recent Glennon Doyle We Can Do Hard Things podcast. And this is a recurring theme for her. She feels very genderless. She said, I know what things feel like. I know when I feel sad, I know when I feel happy, I know what that feels like inside. She said, for me, gender, I have no feeling about it one way or the other. I feel like it's been a social construct put upon me, and that I'm supposed to be this way because I have a biology of a woman, but I don't feel it. And she's talked about this in enough episodes that I start getting a little bit riled up. So I think I'm going to first explain just a little that I learned. Gender studies have evolved quite a bit since I was in college, but I find this helpful for all of us. First of all, if we look at masculine and feminine, not as male and female, but as energies. So there's masculine energy and feminine energy, and it's a spectrum. It's not like you're just here or you're just there. It's this energy. What I learned in my social psychology class was there's actually sort of 4 types of results. We took a test about where we land, and it's not like you're just feminine, you're just feminine. Again, it's a spectrum. And she said, but basically they're within 4 categories. The first category, so one is you tend to lean more towards the feminine. I don't know if they called it so long ago, attributes or qualities, but feminine, I'll say attributes. You can lean more towards the feminine attributes, or for the test, lean more towards the masculine. But then there's 2 other ones. One was undifferentiated, those who did not really have strong feminine or masculine attributes. And it's an interesting one. I never thought about that. Oh. And so sometimes when Glennon's talking, I'm thinking, oh, maybe that's a part of what she's feeling, and so many people are resonating with her. I'm like, oh, it's good for me. The reason I'm sharing this because it was educational for me. Oh, we assume that people feel one way or the other, because she even talks about like transgender and someone who's one gender but feels very strongly about another gender. She goes, I don't feel strongly about any gender. I'm like, oh, that's an important information. You may feel that way. You may know people who feel that way. And then the other one is where you score very high on the feminine and very high on the masculine. So you actually have a lot of both. And that's what they actually call androgynous. Androgynous is not undifferentiated, it's actually fully feminine, fully masculine. And the reason why I remember this, and I'm thinking about it as I'm listening today and talking about it, is because I was listening to Glennon, and I'm like, oh, I totally felt my feminine energy. I'm very aware this was not a social construct that was put on me, because I was surrounded by masculinity. My entire family, my mom tends to lean towards the masculine. So I had 5 people who were very masculine. My environment was very masculine too. So even as girls growing up, because it was in the 70s, it was the feminist movement, we were pants, shirts. We never sort of dressed anything feminine. You definitely didn't really dress up at all, because that would be not equal. We wanted to be equal. So there was no femininity in my world. And yet I knew from the moment I was born, I was very feminine. And I didn't have any mirror for that. But I knew it. I knew it and I felt it. So I know it is something that can be inherent within us. And then I learned about being masculine both from my family and my environment. So when I took that test in college, I actually scored the highest on feminist and the highest on masculine. And my joke to myself is it took 5 men to even out my femininity. The masculine was learned. So I know the difference. So and the point is we can learn. I'm very glad that I learned. And I felt no resistance because I loved my brothers and my father and the world that I lived in. I had no resistance to learning the masculine. I wanted to be more like that. So when you don't have resistance to either gender attributes, energies, we can actually fully, if we choose to, embrace them. It is possible to learn to embrace and embody both masculine and feminine energies. No matter what you define yourself genderly, we can do both. Okay, so we want to have that basic foundation of we can be anything. Nobody is one thing and not the other. We all have degrees, and there's choice every step of the way. We all have choice. But interestingly, because I was so masculine surrounded, I had to learn what it meant. I know I felt it, but then I went on the story. It's like, what does that even mean? I don't get it. I had a hard time defining what the feminine was. So I listened to this wonderful TED Talk. One of my pet peeves with TED Talks is they don't introduce the speaker, and we're having, which I love, a lot more for people from different countries speaking, and I have no idea how to pronounce their names. So I always get a little nervous because I don't want to. This woman, I think, is named Tihana. And interestingly, the first 2 speakers that I'm going to share, both were like me, strongly identified with the masculine in terms of the way they were raised. And so this woman, she said, I was a boy girl, my mother was a scientist, and you're going to be a warrior, go out there and get stuff done. And she was tall and slender, so she became a model, and how incredibly masculine that role was. She said the competition was fierce. It was you were out to beat the other women, and there was no feminine energy at all. Even though the pictures and the external are all feminine, there was an incredible masculine energy to it. And so as she's going on this journey, she's like feeling more and more unfulfilled. I'm not going to the whole story. She went to Burning Bowl. That started opening her up. And then she met this woman who was all about the divine feminine, the divine mother, the divine feminine, divine mother. And through this work of what feeling tone and of what the divine mother was, and she said something that I thought was really beautiful. She said, you have learned that the divine feminine can make you feel rejected. We know you've had the negative experience through your home, through school, through your job, that you feel unwelcome in that divine feminine space, rejected or competitive. She said, but when you really learn about what the divine feminine is, this all-embracing, ever-present love, there's no energy that's going to make you feel more welcome, more at home, more safe, more cared for. The divine feminine energy is what brings us home, which helps us feel connected. And her whole life started switching and shifting to even seeing the divine feminine in her mother, where she said we were like battle axes, armor, and slowly learning for that armor to come down. And she said, I just had to see the divine feminine, the softness and the connection and the attachment with my mother long before she could see it for herself. The next speaker that I listened to is Michelle Williams. No, that's an actress. Michelle someone or other. And she, again, grew up my era, masculine, went to Stanford Business School, very successful. Just by age 26, she's knocking it out of the park, but totally unfulfilled and stressed out. And so she starts seeking what was missing from her life, because she now recognizes this very masculine role that she had taken on and embraced fully was not fulfilling her. And I really love the clarity that she's had, because as I said, I've been doing this for 30 years, and sometimes it's hard to really understand what is the difference. And she really articulated, I thought, really well. Masculine energy, this is what she was saying, is results-oriented. So it's like a bottom line. You want to do something because you want the results. It also highly values autonomy. You have this autonomous expression and you're going to get the result. Feminine energy is about experience, not results. The experience, and it's about connection. Masculine energy is about results. Feminine energy is about the experience. So she gave this great example. She said, you can have a cup of coffee and really love your cup of coffee for the experience of it. You just love the warmth as it's going down, the taste, the feel, and you just breathe into that cup of coffee. That would be the feminine experience of it. The male would be, I'm drinking coffee to have caffeine. You're going for the result. I don't care. I'm not really. Now, she was very good about bringing them together. So ultimately, you want both. You want them from the caffeine, and you want to have the experience as the ideal. So it's interesting to look at your life when you approach anything, any project, anything at home, anything. Are you approaching it from a sense of, I want you to fully experience, have the experience of this, and or am I doing it just for the results because I want to get to the end goal, the end results? And again, it can be both and just it's an interesting inquiry about how you approach life with feminine and masculine energy. Is it to really feel the experience? And it's the experience and the connection with the experience that matters most to you? Is it the result that matters most to you? Or do they both really matter to you? And are you consciously activating? And what are you consciously activating? We have a default mode, so it's not like you're just starting now. You've had a whole life experience, so you can look at yesterday, a month ago. Were you doing whatever you were doing with that results-oriented or to experience something? The divine feminine. Now what she points to, I think this is important, is that they're not the same in how we have a hard time understanding the feminine because experience is a hard thing to quantify and talk about. Results are easy to measure, and you can talk about it. This is what I've done. This is the results. When we do a prayer, here's the manifestation. So we had a prayer retreat, fabulous prayer retreat last week, yay. And there was so much energy in that room, and the experience of it was phenomenal. But then to express that to other people, well, it was phenomenal because, and then you look for the results. Like what were the results of that prayer retreat? What were the results of all that prayer and that energy? They're both valuable, but one is it's hard to talk about the experience. If someone else isn't there and you're trying to convey what the experience was, this is why poets are so important. Poets are important to convey what the experience was because it's really hard to put words into it. So we lean towards the results because that is something if you can figure out what the results are, that is something you can more conceptually express. The way my teacher, he's my world religions teacher when I was in ministerial school, and I've mentioned this before, but it always sticks with me, the difference between masculine and feminine energy. He said it's like you're in a house, masculine energy comes in through the front door and it announces itself. Here I am and blah, 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 blah. I'm teaching, I'm speaking, I'm blah, blah, blah. You know the masculine energy is in the house. And we need that. That's leadership. Leadership comes forth and we express the vision, we clarify, we talk. Feminine energy, he says, comes in through the back door. And we often don't even know it's there. And he said it will fill the whole house. And you don't even know that it's in there, but everything in the house is impacted by that feminine energy. We know we've been impacted by the masculine energy, and it's easier to respond to it too, whether we like it or don't like it. Do we let them all the way in the house? Do we show them into the living room? It might take us a while to let them into the whole house, and we're very clear what we're letting in. The feminine energy is already there. This is the power of the feminine. This is the power of the divine mother. What I know about the divine mother, as she has informed the feminine energy in our world, she feels. Everybody here has a different story about your own mother. Again, whole spectrum. You also have your own story about being a mother biological mother, adopted mother, putting some foster mother, putting a child up for adoption, not choosing not to be a mother of a human being, but mothering animals, mothering your garden, mothering your creative projects that are impacting the world. Everyone here knows the mother energy, full spectrum, but the one thing that will be consistent when we know what's about the mother is we are going to feel deeply about it. This is why mothers are the center of therapy. The divine feminine you feel. Masculine is transcendent. The masculine energy is transcendent. The feminine energy is immanent. It's in form. It attaches. It cares. It loves. It touches. It caresses. It hears you. It empathizes. It's fully embodied in form. I had a spiritual teacher who said, you talk to a group of women about only transcendence. Let's transcend. Let's transcend. You're going to shut the women down, the feminine energy in the room down, because the feminine energy isn't only interested in transcendent, but in immanence, in that deep connection. When you think about the people who you are the most emotionally connected to, that's your divine feminine. It is the divine feminine that keeps our world together. If you look at any spiritual movement that has become an organization, that spiritual movement has been peopled by the feminine energy. Because it's that feminine energy that is creating the connection. You can have all the spiritual high concepts you want, but without that connection, without bringing it to earth, without that caring of how it's showing up in the world, it's detached. So the masculine without the feminine is detached. And this is just a personal, I'm using this as it just came up, and I know everyone has different experiences. When I read The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer, I didn't enjoy it. And I thought, oh, because it's untethered, it's unattached, it's free. And this is part of the thing I've been working on for years. I want to feel that freedom, but I also want to feel the deep connection. And sometimes we equate deep connection with taking away our freedom. This is why the masculine and feminine is so important. I want to feel the freedom, but I also want to feel connected. And I want to feel them both profoundly. And sometime when I read a book that is only about the transcendent, only about being free, unfettered, untethered, and free, but I don't feel the deep emotion and caring and passion for our fellow human beings, I know the divine mother, the divine feminine is missing from the field, and it falls flat for me. I just feel empty inside. It's free, but it's empty. We are here as divine mothers to create connection. All of us in this divine feminine energy are here to create connection. We are here to create connection. That's why we're here. Why even be on the earth if we're just going to sit and, what was it Andrew Harvey used to say? Sit on your meditation pillow so you have no earthly good. Like you're in this transcendent, but you're not connecting. Everyone knows I love Joel Goldsmith. I'm a huge Joel Goldsmith, but this was a huge piece that he was missing. He didn't want an organization. He didn't care about the connection. It was all about transcendence. The transcendence is brilliant. I love it, but I need the connection, don't you? That's what the Divine Mother is here to do. So my last and absolute favorite TED Talk I think that I've ever heard in my life, only because it was so different, and I do not have the courage of this woman. But she is from an Arab country, and she said, well, let me just say, before that, when I lived in D.C., I was living next to a family from Afghanistan, and they had just come over. They'd only been over for 3 weeks. And this was in the early 2000s. I had all my preconceptions of what an Islamic Afghan family was like. And it sort of blew all my preconceived ideas. The warmest, like indescribably warm. The kids, when I would come home, the kids would run over, and they just walk into my house, and they're like, well, you're by yourself, and we don't want you to be by yourself. And they would just start, they didn't even ask, they would just like start doing their homework on my table, like they were convinced you were not going to be alone. And then I would go, the mother, wore her beautiful robes, and I was there for Ramadan, and they invited me to the celebration afterwards. And all I can think of, like, it was a warmth beyond anything I ever experienced, but the thing that really surprised me, when the men left and all these women were together, the sensuality, I was like, they are so sensual and totally comfortable with their sensuality. The way they talk, I'm like, oh my gosh, these women love being women. I hadn't experienced anything like that before. It was amazing to me. So, to this TED Talk is a woman who was raised in an Arab country, and she had the same experience as a child. She said, I loved it. The women, they were so open and sensual. She said, but as soon as the men walked in, covered up. Everything got, and she goes, why do you have to cover up? And this was very agitating to her, and we get her so upset because she felt the beauty of the divine feminine energy in her body as a teen. So she made the commitment to go west, she said, which was very unusual for her country, and yet she went west, passionate, got her PhD in gender studies. And she said, but it became very confusing to me because I found Western women very much like masculine, like to be free, because I wasn't finding the women free. They were still very masculine. They were taking on the masculine qualities. She said, I still felt like my feminine, all that feminine energy I felt as a kid, I couldn't find it expressed even in gender studies, which is all about feminism, because the feminism had become so masculine. So she was talking about the power of just standing in the femininity. I'm not going to do what she does. I'm almost even afraid to share the TED Talk on my Facebook page. I thought, this is great, but I'm afraid I'm going to get a lot of pushback for it, so I'm a little, like the fact that she did this. So she had everybody stand up. Now, she was wearing a beautiful dress. She's in about her 40s, I guess. Beautiful woman, voluptuous. And so she said, okay, everybody stand up, all men and women. She goes, okay, so we're going to have everybody. She goes, I want everyone. She said, we're done with the mind stuff, enough TED Talk talking. She goes, I just want everyone to bounce like this. She goes, men too. It's good. Now, man, I want you to put your hands out, and you're going to be holding the space the whole time for all the women. Now, she said men and women. We're talking masculine, feminine energy. Everyone has choice where you prefer to land. So she said, okay, so I'm just going to say masculine. All those who are connected with their masculine energy and prefer that, hands out, you're bouncing. And actually, she's going quite fast. Now, remember, she's wearing a dress. It's very loose. She goes, now, women, your power here. I want you to feel your power and let it go. Just go. And she went on for like 15 minutes. She's having them open up their pelvis, and your vagina's open, your vagina's closed. I mean, she went through this whole thing. She was so in her body, and you could feel it, and you could see all the men were smiling. They're feeling good. The women were all laughing. It was interesting, though, as she kept going, it was like they got tired. You know, it's like, okay, we want to sit down and listen again. Like, too much in your body. I mean, it was fun for like 3 minutes, but let's like sit down. But the energy, it was so completely different than what we're used to. Someone who's so not just in her body, but in her feminine body, in her woman body. She embraced it in a way that like I said, it was so much that I thought, I don't know if I could post this. This might really upset people that she's so in her body. Like it's too out there. And I'm like, wow, she's right. I'm having this worry that she's too out there, and yet we consider our society free and open to the feminine. We are the women in our world are completely open and available, and yet I'm afraid to post a video of a woman who's fully embracing her femininity. That feminine energy, and she also did it as power. When we're like this, we're also, no, that's not okay to pay us less money. No, you cannot do this. Like she was like, your feminine power, and when you're in your feminine body is strong and powerful, and you're not like this, you're like this, and you can't do this to me. It was awesome. It was the most energetically awesome thing. And this all came from this embodiment of the divine feminine. And every one of us have that. Everyone, masculine and feminine, because it's that embodiment, that feeling of emotion, because where do we feel emotion? Not in our head, but in our body. And what do we feel around mother energy, divine feminine, is emotion. This deep, deep, deep feeling and emotion. We care. We are not indifferent. We feel the pain and we feel the joy strongly. We are not about, feminine energy is not about even keel, it's about feeling profoundly. And that's the energy that moves the earth. That's the energy that changes lives. The reason why every spiritual movement is filled with women is because without that deep feeling that shifts, we are on this spiritual journey to shift, not to be indifferent, not to be neutral, not to just like, okay. No, we care. We're going to move. We're going to move our feeling. We're going to move it with each other. Connecting, not alone and autonomous, but connecting as teams, as community, as gathering. We're going to make a difference in this world. That's what this power of the Divine Mother is. And that's who all of us are. Some may embody it more than others. And like I said, we always have choice. This is not something that it is God-given to everyone. The fully masculine and the fully feminine has already been given, and we choose to embody it. We choose to feel deeply. We choose to care deeply. Yay, God. And so let's pray from that depth of deep caring and deep love that we don't, well, let's just go. And so how grateful I am to activate in all of us the power of this divine feminine energy that has always been here. It doesn't come and it doesn't go. It is the great womb of all creation. She is here now. She is here now, and she is a powerful first cause force in our lives. And we choose to recognize that here today. Her love, her care, her compassion, her beauty, her harmony, and that she pours through every one of us here and now. We open our heart and we open our entire body to feel her alive. She is so utterly alive in all of us. She is not indifferent. She is not neutral. She is passionately engaged with the people in her life, those that have been given her to care about, those in our immediate world, our families, any deep feelings of healing. She's there. She's there with compassion. She's there with wisdom. She's there in divine caring. Every step of our way. No one here is alone ever. When we choose to feel her, we will never feel more welcome, more at home, more known, more seen, because she cares about who we show up uniquely, not some generic form, but uniquely who each one of us is. And so we welcome that energy into our heart, into our body, into our soul. And we welcome to be her expression on earth. We gloriously say yes to her light and her power and her grace in all of our relationships. We allow ourselves to feel her connecting this very day with our own mothers. We give thanks for our own mothers, the depth of feeling that they are calling forth, that allow us to remember that we are alive and that we care and that we do have feelings and we do have emotions. And any healing that needs to involve in this area of the divine feminine with our own mothers, we open to that healing, because the divine mother is there helping us. She is always helping us. She transcends our human mothers to help us heal with our human mothers. And those of us who love the imperfect perfection of our mothers, we just give thanks and we bless them. So just take a moment and bless your moms or anyone who played that mother role in your life as a child. And we give thanks for our children that have come through us or we have welcomed into our life. We bless them. We bless them for the opportunity to allow that divine mother within us to be expressed and to be fully alive. That deep, abiding feeling that is beyond words, beyond anything that we can describe. And yet we know it when we see our children. And what we know is that it's not just our children, but it's our friends' children. It's our neighbors' children. It's the children across the planet. We are that divine, feminine, all-loving energy for all children. And let us feel that deep caring that every single child on this planet matters. Passionately, we care, even as we may care for our own children or our nieces and our nephews. We carry that out into the entire world. Every child matters, and our emotional care and passion for that, we allow to open up our heart and our body even more. As we care for the plants and the animals and our and nature, all living creation, the Divine Mother cares about it all. There's room enough in her heart to care about it all, to open her heart into infinity and care, and to cry with and to celebrate with all creation. This is who we are. This is who we've always been, and we continue to unfold in all of her power, in all of her grace, in all of her glory, in all of her joy, in all of her compassion. We continue to say, yes, 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 use my entire being to feel your love for all creation. And so in deep abiding gratitude for this love that is always making us welcome, that is always welcoming us home, caring and loving. We see it, we feel it, and we are it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Divine Mother, Divine Energy. Thank you, Divine Light that is living through and as us now. We let this word be now into the womb of all creation, knowing that as we have known and seen and felt it, it is done. And we say together, and so it is. Amen and amen.
I walk in God in all I do. I walk in God in all that I say.